Hello everyone, and welcome to Fireplace 101. Like any good training video, it's always best to assume that the people watching know absolutely nothing about fireplaces. And if that's you, you're in the right place. But if not, relax, these videos catch up really quickly. I've broken the course up into 5 different parts. Wood-burning fireplaces open-faced, so like traditional fireplaces. Wood-burning fireplaces high efficiency, so things like stove and high-efficiency built-in fireplaces. B-vent gas, direct vent, and vent-free fireplaces. So for right now, we're going to start at the beginning, and I mean the beginning. Since fire was discovered, people have been using it to keep warm, keep safe, have a source of light, and even a way to cook their food. From that point of view, not much has changed. But the way we make fire and the way we contain fires definitely has. From the first time a hole was made in the roof of a cave, a few laws have stayed true. There are 4 things you need to make a good fire: fuel, spark, oxygen, and in our case, draft. All of these things are essential to having a good fire. So let's start with the beginning. We need something to burn. It could be gas, it could be pellets, it could be coal, but for the sake of this conversation, it's going to be wood. There also needs to be a spark. You need to get that fire going. And since no one has the time to wait for lightning anymore, we now have things like fire starters, and that could be anything from a little bit of newspaper to fat wood or all other kinds of chemical starters. And in a gas fireplace, that would be your thermopile or pilot assembly. A fire needs oxygen or it will not burn. This is important to the fireplace world because it's a fact that's often forgotten. Back in the cave days, like where we started, there wasn't much keeping the air out. But nowadays, houses are built pretty tight. So supplying a wood-burning fireplace with oxygen from an outside air kit has become essential. So let's talk a little bit about how a modern wood-burning fireplace is built as compared to years ago. Years ago, a fireplace was built out of bricks, stone, mortar, that kind of thing, right? And there was either a brick or later on a clay chimney that took your smoke all the way up and past the roof line. Well, the fact that we need to discharge smoke above the roof line has not changed, but everything else has. Now, fireplaces are prefabricated. They're made out of metal or sheet metal boxes, and typically it's a box inside of a box that insulates it, right? So that's what keeps your fire contained, is that double wall system. In most cases, I'm speaking very generally. There's different qualities in these fireplaces. So typically the heavier the weight or the gauge of the metal or the brick liner that's inside, that is an indication of the quality of that fireplace. So for instance, we sell superior fireplaces which have the mosaic brick that goes inside those fireplaces with a lot of different choices to choose from. That's a very high-end option. That's a good wood-burning fireplace. Chimney systems have changed a lot too. We just spoke about how fireplaces used to be built out of brick and mortar. Well, we use an air-cooled chimney now. So that chimney needs to go all the way up to the roof. But it's a lot easier than laying brick or setting tiles and stuff like that. So it makes it a real, almost like Lego, right? So the fireplace goes down first. All that pipe gets stacked all the way up until we get above the roof line. So it is a relatively simple installation as compared to doing an old school fireplace. That pipe, though, is air cooled and it's double walled. It's double walled for 2 reasons. It's insulating so that heat doesn't escape the pipe and maybe burn the inside of your wall or anything like that. But it's also that outer skin is drawing outside air down the pipe and cooling the entire fireplace assembly, right? So that's a very essential part, and that process is actually called a thermosiphon, right? So air is rising, and hot air is rising, and cold air is dropping down the skin of the pipe. In addition to that, we talked about how we need to feed that fire. So the outside air kit is actually feeding the fire at an equal volume that we're discharging up the chimney. And that's why in some situations a wood-burning fireplace in a modern house might not work unless you crack a window in the room, because you need to bring that volume of air into the room to actually get the fireplace to draft. So draft is very important to these assemblies. So we're going to talk a little bit about that later, but for right now, what I need you guys to remember is that we need fuel, we need spark, we need oxygen, and we need draft, right? That's really what this lesson is about. Okay, everyone, so let's talk a little bit about the kind of fireplaces that we sell at Tri-State that fit into this open-faced category. There's really only two brands. There is the Empire and the IHP Superior. Both of them have very similar products, everything from lower-end entry-level units that a builder would buy to real luxury kind of high-end wood-burning fireplace that would simulate a natural fireplace that was built brick by brick. Beautiful brick panels that they have their choice of color or design, things like that. So that's really what makes an open-faced fireplace. That's really the difference between an inexpensive one and a luxury one is the quality of that fit and finish and the materials that it's built with. To some degree, when you buy a wood-burning fireplace, you're basically buying a hole in the wall. The smaller the metal typically, right, the less exposed metal that's on the outside of that fireplace, the more it's considered a higher end brand, right? So anything you can kind of feel or touch. Now, of course, you can always add things like glass doors and accessories to the fireplace and stuff like that. So just because it has a glass door on it doesn't mean it's not open-faced. We're talking about that you have the ability to open the fire and burn it open like a natural fire. Now, why would somebody want to do that? Well, as you can imagine, it's not the most energy efficient thing to do. You're throwing a lot of heat up that chimney, a lot of useful heat. But if you're in a climate where maybe you want the ambiance of a fire and you don't want a lot of heat back in the room, it's a really nice choice. Of course, you're going to get heat in that general area. If you're sitting in front of the fireplace, you're going to be warm and toasty. But on paper, you're kind of pulling more heat up the chimney than you really can put back into the room. So if heat is your focus, an open-faced wood-burning fireplace probably isn't the thing for you. That being said, there are still a lot of them being sold all over the country. Some people want that open, natural feeling. There is something about throwing another log on the fire that is people really want. It gives a different feeling to your home. So they are popular in some parts of the country, more so than others. But if you are focused on making heat, this probably isn't the product for you. You'd probably want something either closed wood burning, like a stove or a high efficiency fireplace, or perhaps gas or something like that. But that being said, we have a full array of choices at Tri-State between Empire and IHP Superior. So let's talk a little bit about why this is the preferred way to install a fireplace into a new home. It's pretty simple. It's the most cost-effective, easiest, and safest way to do it. It's all kind of all the draft dynamics in these fireplaces, as long as you put them in correctly, are already thought out for you. So building a fireplace out of brick and clay and stone is somewhat of a lost art. You have to really know what you're doing in order to get the right curvature on the back wall and the right draft. With a prefab fireplace, all that is tested at the factory and already thought out for you. So it gives a builder a really easy way to kind of come into a framed space and put that fireplace down. Now, the way they do it is they actually install the fireplace right on the subfloor. I had mentioned before that these fireplaces are a box inside of a box, right? So what that does is that gives you clearance on the floor. So you're not actually, there's always a space between the bottom of the fireplace and the bottom of the floor. And that airspace basically creates insulation. So everything is self-contained in that box. Then the pipe gets stacked on top of the box. Now, it is very important that you remember that the box goes first and the pipe gets stacked on top, because the fireplace actually helps support the weight of the pipe. There are many times where builders want to put the pipe in ahead of time, and then they think they're going to be able to hook up to it. They can't really do that because there's no adjustable pipes in this type of system. This is what we call an air-cooled chimney system. So there's nothing that expands, there's nothing that flexes. In fact, there's only 2 elbow choices in this kind of application, which is 15 and 30 degrees. Now, that's not a big variation, right? So a lot of times I'll see plans that have wood-burning fireplaces on them, and they're calling for 90 and 45 degree elbows. Not going to work on an open system, because an open system is dependent on draft, and you need that pipe to be as straight as possible. So there's not really elbows for this type of fireplace. There's only what they call offsets. So kind of remember that. It's only 15 or 30 degree offsets. So as I mentioned before, the pipe is relatively lightweight, and it's double walled. It's a pipe inside a pipe. And the only thing between those 2 pipes is airspace. And the outer wall actually serves to cool not only the chimney system, but the whole fireplace. So another thing I hear a lot when doing fireplace estimates is builders will ask, well, can I tap this into an existing flue? And the answer is no, every single time. It has to be that the chimney that's spec'd for that fireplace has to be, from the fireplace all the way up to the chimney cap. Everything is important to the system, because that pipe is not only exhausting smoke and hot air and stuff like that, but it's also pulling cool air down the pipe to cool it and down and around the fireplace. So it's very important. Now, once again, it's very lightweight. It goes together very easily and kind of either snaps or twist snaps together. So you just keep stacking sections, and it comes in a variety of different sections. Anything usually from 6 inches to 4 feet. So you can put together different lengths. Obviously, if you put different lengths together between elbows, you get different degrees of offset, right? So let's say you were using a 30 degree offset. You would come up, set your 30 degree offset, and the distance between the return elbow is how far you can bring that pipe over. And then you would return to straight and continue your run to the roof. Now, once again, very important, we penetrate the roof, and there's what they call a 10-foot 2 rule. So as a general rule, your pipe needs to be 2 feet above anything within 10 feet of it, okay? So that means roof lines, other pitches, whatever the case may be. It should be the tallest spot within a 10-foot circumference. Now, there's lots of little parts that you kind of need to put an entire system together, right? Because you're penetrating floor levels in a house. You're going through sometimes attics and roofs and stuff like that. So I want to talk just really quickly about some of those parts. Every time, at every floor level, you should have what's called a fire stop. And a fire stop is basically just a metal plate with a hole in it. And it's pretty simple. It's there so that if anything ever did catch fire, because heat kind of wants to rise and fire climbs very quickly, that metal plate would suppress the fire for a certain amount of time to give you a chance to to put it out in a catastrophic emergency. So fire stops are there to stabilize the pipe, right? Front to back, left to right. And also, God forbid, an emergency, it would actually suppress the fire. So we need one of those every floor level. So think like every 10 feet, let's call it. And that might differ from job to job, but we're talking in generality here. Every 10 feet, we would have a fire stop. In addition to that, there's things like roof flashings, right? So depending on the pitch of your roof, you might want a different roof flashing. And all of our manufacturers make roof flashings, everything from flat to a very steep pitches, and obviously you have to match the roof flashing to the roof line. And then there's also things like storm collars, right? Which is just a little collar that goes around to divert water away from the flashing so that water doesn't roll down the pipe. And then, of course, there's a chimney cap. And the chimney cap is actually a very important part to the system because, once again, remember we had discussed how inner pipe and outer pipe have two different jobs, right? So the inner pipe exhausts and the outer pipe takes cold air in. Well, it's the cap that actually separates those two. So you should be using the cap that was designed with the chimney system it comes with. Okay, everyone. Hopefully you have enjoyed this video and you found it helpful. Obviously, we're not going to turn people into fireplace experts with one video. However, there should be enough here so that you have at least an understanding of how the systems work. And that's really all we're trying to do. There'll be later videos where we kind of do deep dives into specific makes and model numbers. But for right now, we just want to make sure that you guys know the basics, and that's what this video is here to do. So hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you real soon.